What is going on, everybody? Phil Swanson back again with another episode of the Go Lead Everything podcast. In a world that's promoting fear, hate, anti-truth, and conformity, we're bringing you faith, love, truth, and courage. And we're back today with another real conversation. Got an awesome guest. This man is an entrepreneur and rapidly becoming a guy that has really connected with me in a lot of ways when it comes to business and some of the things we're thinking about in life. And I'm learning a lot from him. Honored to have him on the show. He's even doing some amazing podcasting things. You can find him at successwithclass.com. Go check out his book, Service Business Mastery. Steve Calascione, welcome to the show, my friend.
Much appreciated, Phil. Excited to be here. And you nailed that last name. Usually people say Steve Calzone, Calascione. So we're on the right path here, man.
Hey, there you go, man. Well, welcome to the show. It's always fun to have a fellow podcaster on. What made you want to start podcasting?
Yeah, honestly, man, it was a way for me to link up with like-minded individuals and just have really engaging one-on-one conversations. So it wasn't a grand vision of like, I want to have 10,000 listeners and I want to, change the world. It really was selfishly for me to get better as a person and learn from someone else. And it was a cool way for us to have an uninterrupted conversation because as you know, we live in a wildly distracting world between social media and just like flashes of like attention. And it's rare, at least for me in my everyday, to have just a one-on-one straight conversation and, really connecting on a deep level. So that was the motivating factor for me to launch a podcast. And it's mainly I interview entrepreneurs. So it's I love business and entrepreneurship. So it's a really fun hobby for me at this point.
That's a great answer. I know, like, there's so many good reasons to start a podcast. Meeting cool people being one of them. It's basically an awesome opportunity to get free training, right? Those are some of the selfish ones.
Absolutely, man.
And then some of the benefits of legacy, right? Like helping people down the road who might stumble upon a cool conversation with Steve and some, whoever. I heard you had a billionaire on your show. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. He was the owner of ex-owner of Houston Astros and the vice president of Walmart, was business partners with Sam Walton.
Wow.
So he was a pretty big force to reckon with. He's an older man in his 80s now, but definitely a wealth of knowledge. Like he's sharp as a tack still. And I've interviewed some really cool 9-figure entrepreneurs as well. And you never know who's going to say yes. So I just kind of reach out to people I find really interesting. I'm like, hey, I got this show. This is what I'm about. Want to have a conversation? And I'm like, you sure? Really? On my show? All right, let's rock it.
Oh man. Yeah. It's amazing the people that you can just literally just message and you have instant access now with the DM world, direct message world in social media. I mean, you can just talk to whoever you want on the planet. It's pretty wild.
100%, man. And something you mentioned about like legacy, right? So I'm a relatively new business owner and entrepreneur. I worked corporate America for years. I was on the straight and narrow path of getting an education, worked the 9 to 5. I come from a fairly broken household too. Actually, I don't know if I ever told you this. This is something that you'll probably find very interesting, to say the least. So I grew up in New York City, Brooklyn and Staten Island. That's a heavily Italian demographic. My dad was in the Italian mafia. I don't know if I told you that in person.
No, you didn't.
So
I'm nervous now interviewing you.
Yeah. I know a guy. Literally, my dad. Yeah. But growing up, I was surrounded by some pretty wild characters. I mean, I like people who were like literally a hitman. I did 30 years in jail. I'm out now on parole. I'm like, wow. Sonny, Sammy the Bull type of characters. And my dad wasn't a murderer. Let me put that out there. He was more of the white collar guy. But really, what kind of started my legacy of kind of questioning my path, that the classic "you make a plan and God laughs" type of question came into my field when I was 12 years old. So I remember this like it was yesterday. I'm coming home. My brother and I got off the school bus and we're walking towards. We lived in a townhouse at the time in Staten Island, and I noticed the front door is kicked in, and we walk in and there's FBI agents inside of the house. and they're like, search warrant, going through all the files and paperwork. My mom's sitting on the couch crying. We start to cry. We don't really even know what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And an FBI agent sits us down. Is like, 12. My brother's 10. He's like, your dad's been arrested for federal money laundering.
Wow.
Be coming home for a while. Do you have a place to stay? Your mom seems to be very upset, and then left. And from that day forward, it was just like, what is happening? Like we were living, upper middle class lifestyle. We had multiple houses. I didn't know what the hell my dad did, to be honest, as a kid. He just went to work, and he owned legitimately laundromats, and it was money laundering from that.
Wow.
So we, overnight, it was from that to, okay, government has seized all assets. So everything that was in the bank, even legitimate money, seized the cars. Practically overnight, we were living in poverty and had to go on government assistance. And that's how I started my teenage years. And it was very bitter. My dad ultimately got sentenced to 3 years in a federal prison. I have to go visit him. And my mother was unfortunately fell into some drug usage during the time. So stepping up to be a man was something I had to quickly ascertain at an early age. I'm hitting you hard here, Phil, but that's kind of what carved the gentleman you see in front of me. It was
you were 12 years old?
Yeah, 12 years old. Yep.
Dang, man.
Yeah.
Thinking back, not knowing what your dad did, probably a warning sign. Red flag?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Right, like when people would show and tell, like, where's your dad? A fireman or a police officer, a doctor. Where'd your dad do? I don't know.
It's like a movie, man.
Business.
It's like you're like a character in The Departed. You know what I mean? You're like I don't know if you ever seen that movie with.
Oh yeah, 100%. I would say, ever see the movie Goodfellas?
Yeah. Goodfellas.
Okay, so the jail that they go to, where they're chopping the garlic with the razor blade, it's called Lewisburg Federal Penitentiary, and that's where my dad was sent.
Oh my gosh, what was it like visiting your dad in jail?
Yeah, so there was two phases to this. So when you get arrested, you go for arraignment. He went to court. He was posted on bail, so he ended up coming home from the initial arrest, and he was out on bail for a couple of months. That when he went for his court date, and I remember asking him, like, Dad, how long are you going? Is it 6 months? Like 8? Like, how long are you going away for? I knew something bad had happened. He's like, oh, we'll see. Hopefully just a few months. And then it turned out to be 3 years, right? They hit him with like racketeering charges. He didn't cooperate. Yeah, the code of silence type of thing that the mafia is known for. So he could have done 6 months, but he ended up doing 3 years, right? When that happens, they put you in a state penitentiary. In this case, it was in Brooklyn on 3rd Avenue in particular, for anyone who's familiar with New York City. And that's where you're mixed in the holding pen with rapists, murderers, child molesters. And even though he's a white-collar crime, he was there for 6 months. And I remember this like it was yesterday, physically going into that building to visit him and being patted down, like having to kind of like put all your stuff through the metal detectors. Him wearing the orange jump, actually it was a beige jumpsuit in that facility. And I wanted to go over and hug him, and they were like, nope, no contact.
Really?
Just like, at a distance, sit down, because he was mixed in with real bad people, drug dealers, who would use the hugging as an excuse, and then they would do paraphernalia switches and like hide things in their sleeves or put in their mouth, whatever it was, and then they'd go back and sell it inside the actual jail cell.
Wow.
So they removed that. Like, I couldn't even like touch my father. And he was there for 6 months. Really tough lockdown. As you can imagine, hard on us. I grew. By the way, I did a TEDx talk on this, so it's very much public at this point. So I became very bitter, very like the typical teenage hatred, where I blamed everyone and everything. I definitely was the victim mentality of why me. And it lasted that way for a long time. He got transferred to Lewisburg, which is a federal prison. So it was a little bit more of like not quite like Goodfellas, where like they're laughing and smoking cigars and drinking wine, but you have more freedom where you're not in a lockdown 24/7.
Right.
Wander like a campground, so to speak.
Right.
But for me, I was super introverted, head down. I couldn't make eye contact with people. It was embarrassing in a way to share this story. And I didn't really tell my friends. I just said, oh, my dad, separated from my mom, or he's on vacation, whatever excuse it was. For up until honestly high school, when he was still in prison, he was about to get out. I think I was 15 at the time, and I had a teacher there who took me under his wing and like would just be like almost an early mentor, like my first real mentor. Very kind-hearted guy. His name was Mr. Romano, and he would just ask general questions like, "How are you feeling? What's going on? You know, what are your long-term goals? Where do you see yourself after college?" Stuff that nobody. I'm the first one to graduate college in my family, so no one really even asked these questions. And through these types of empathetic-led questions, I found out that he had faced a similar situation when he was in high school, and he came up the other side, and he's fine, and he's a tenured professor now, and doing well. And that kind of, I remember this. He wrote down in my yearbook. He said, "Go and show the world the man of conscience that I know you to be," because he got to know me, and that was kind of a paradigm shift for me of like, okay, I have something to show. I'm not worthless. It's not a woe is me mentality. And I started. It wasn't overnight, but it started to click and almost forced me to become a better man in a way. It's not end up in that path to learn what true hardship is, because I think in our society, this whole microaggression thing that people are kind of espousing of being insulted over nothing, it doesn't affect me at all anymore. I know what real hardship is, and that's not it. You know, it toughens you up in a way.
Yeah, man, that's impressive. Yeah, I love how you were talking about stepping up to be a man. I just posted today this Grant Cardone quote that I heard on his podcast the other day. He says, "If you see an obvious problem and you have a solution, it's your responsibility to exert control, to step in and lead." Which, as a 12-year-old, I can't imagine how tough that was to do. But you know, that was like the whole point of me starting Go Lead Everything, was I saw in this world, right, like to the microaggression cultural things you're talking about, like the world's starving for people, like plain people like you and me, Steve, to just see needs and go meet them and step up and do the right thing and not be afraid to
be
speak
men,
up, right?
essentially.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like just step up. And you know what that means? It means not being nice, which I also just did a podcast about, because nice, do you know what? The etymology of the word nice, it means to not know. Ignorant. It comes from the Latin word that means ignorant or stupid.
Really? I didn't know that. That's something I just learned just now. But it makes sense.
And so, you know, I don't want to be. Why did nice guys finish last? That's why. They don't know. They don't know anything.
It's very true.
And if you're going to lead, you got to know, right? Or at least know you need to know and go find out and take that responsibility. But you talked about a really powerful thing that that man did for you, your mentor. It sounds like he really gave you an identity.
He let me discover my identity that was hiding. It was kind of just shoved down into my chest, where I didn't want people to really get to know me, because then they might get to know like what my dad did, and there was a source of shame for the family there. And you know, I was an avid reader tremendously, because I became an introvert. I read every book in that school library. And
you don't seem introverted to me at all, Steve. I would never have guessed you were an introvert, man.
Yeah. It was
what happened?
It's been a work in progress, man. I started just after having this mentor, I just started putting myself out there. I couldn't even make eye contact with the opposite sex. Like, that's how shy I was, in a sense. I got LASIK surgery. I lost my nerdy glasses. I started going to the gym, started working out a little bit more just to boost the confidence. And I started hanging around people that I aspired to be. And it's something that I've kept since my early 20s, of making sure the 5 people around me were all smarter, better, and of greater intelligence than me, and not hang around people who are just like, I'm sure you know guys in high school who are just doing the same stuff, cracking beers on the weekends, watching sporting events, and haven't changed since then. They're not in the growth phase. So it took a lot for me to kind of get out of that mindset. And I'm happy that I'll add, I'm very close to my dad right now, to the point where he's actually one of my business partners in a home renovation company.
Wow. Is he do your finances?
No. Yeah. Still some shiftiness about him now. I kid. But he, you know, he's a general contractor. He's, you know, that's his jam right now.
Wow. That's cool.
Even before that, man, you talk about business and getting over failures. I mean, when my father got out of jail, he was a man on a mission. He was reformed. He cut ties with his old, you know, mafiosi buddies. He started taking out lines of credit on whatever pieces of real estate we had left and loans. Built up the laundry business again. That's the first time I actually learned about what direct marketing was. He wouldn't know what the word was, but he was doing door hangers and he was doing like promos. And that's how I really learned the business as a teenager of like, wow, this works. People are calling off a flyer and like coming to the laundromats.
Wow.
Yeah. And we were on a roll. But he suffered, still does. And I have to an extent, what I would call shiny object syndrome, where it's on to the next one. What's the next thing we can do? And at 19, when I was still in college, he thought it'd be a great idea to buy an Italian restaurant with no experience. Like he knows how to order food, and that's the beginning and end of the experience. And as a 19-year-old, I know less than that. And he's like, yeah, Steve, it'll be fine. It's all right. Just you just work the bar. I'll show up 1 or 2 days a week. Yeah, the people, we got a good chef, and bada bing, bada boom, we're good.
Yeah, easy peasy.
Yeah. And that was so I'm 6 feet tall. I dropped to 134 pounds from the stress of running a restaurant and just cankering on like just how fast can we burn this restaurant to the grounds? Of man, everything. I go into my book a little bit, some of the stories, but cocaine use in the bathroom, a chef who was an ex-Nazi, people stealing from us, like articles written with people breaking it in.
Wow.
We've had riots happen outside. I mean, you name it, we've gone through it. And we definitely lost multiple tens and tens of thousands, I think close to 100 grand in that business venture. And Phil, that scared the hell out of me from ever being a business owner. And I was like, nope, gonna go back to college and never again. Wow. So it's been a hell of a journey, man. I've definitely have scars to show from it, but I'm a big advocate of overcoming adversity. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, so to speak.
How many businesses have you started?
I've started and failed at 4, and overall, I would say for successful ones, 3 now. So about 6 or 7 overall.
You know, it's interesting. I was hearing my buddy Tony Watley. He's one of the reasons I started podcasting. He's the founder of 365 Driven. I joined his entrepreneur group. Excuse me. And several of them were podcasting, and that's how I learned how to podcast. And so that was one of the reasons I started. But, you know, I've heard him talk about the number of businesses he, you know, dabbled in before he had successful ones. And, you know, I've heard other successful entrepreneurs talk about, you know, it was like my 9th business that finally took off or whatever. Right. And I kind of struggled with like entrepreneur identity because I was always an employee. Mm-hmm. And so I never thought of myself as an entrepreneur. But it was so funny just the other day. And there's the reason I asked you this question. You said now it's probably like 7 businesses or whatever. Like, I'm pretty sure I'm on my 6th business. And I was just like, how the heck did that happen? Like, you know,
run through them. What were the businesses that started?
It's just exciting. I mean, well, like I consider the podcast a business. I haven't monetized it yet, but it kind of is and has potential for, you know, becoming a profitable business at some point down the road. But, you know, just the podcasting. I've had a marketing business. I have a boat rental business. You know, we got an Airbnb.
Yeah, man, you're an entrepreneur.
Rental business. Yeah, that's what I mean. So, you know, similar to your identity thing previously, it's like, you know, hey, I am an entrepreneur, and like I'm not afraid to say it now. But there was a time where I was, right, because I didn't like. It was just like a weird like mental hold up thing. But anyway, I had to ask you how many started because it seems to me. Any successful entrepreneur I've found, they have that same story. Like it's at least 5 to 10 businesses.
Oh yeah, no, I've lost my shirt a lot of times. From the restaurant to a failed coffee import business where I flew into Colombia and Cuba to try to get coffee into the United States. That went down the tubes because I didn't do like just budget projections of like, well, how much is it actually going to cost me to bring coffee? And I was selling at a negative. I'm like, that's not going to last that long. I've had that Amazon, like drop shipping that failed. I've had, I mean, you name it, I've dabbled in something.
Yeah, we've got GLE gear, so I got
there you go.
I got a drop shipping business.
Yeah, hey, yeah, for sure, man. I'll tell you when the business succeeded, and this is the first one that I'm like, wow. And this is only this is in 2020, the height of COVID, when a business shouldn't have succeeded. I was working that corporate 9 to 5. I was in hospitality, sales, and marketing. I was working in Midtown Manhattan. I was dabbling in real estate, where I purchased. Probably at this point a duplex in Allentown, Pennsylvania, which is a hellhole. It was all I could afford at the time. And my idea was, all right, I'll buy a piece of real estate once every other year, and maybe in 20 years I can retire, so to speak. COVID comes, and New York City is like the first wave of the infected, so to speak, right? I get laid off because I'm doing events, no more events. My wife is in the travel industry. As you can imagine, that gets decimated. She gets laid off, and she's 6 months pregnant with my soon-to-be-born daughter at the time.
Oh, wow.
So knowing that we lost our health
tough.
insurance,
Yeah,
I lost 2 sources of income. We did have the unemployment, which was it's nothing home to write about. Owned a condo, had a mortgage to pay, had all the bills that kind of are associated with that. It was the accidental burn the bridges moment for me, where I have no other choice.
You mean somebody arsoned your bridges?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The living arsoned the bridges, sunk the boats, whatever terminology you want to use, man.
Holy moly, man.
Yeah,
That's
man.
wild.
And the industry that I was successful in, God knows how long that was going to stay under with COVID. Originally, it was stop the spread, 2-week lockdown,
Right.
and then they just kind of kept kicking that down. I'm like, man, it could be a year or two. Like, I need to make money today to do something.
Right.
And I would say for any entrepreneur in there. Now, I was honestly, Phil, I was a coward. I always wanted to start a business full fledged, but I'm like, nah, I'll keep the corporate job. I'm a little, what if that, what if this? If you want to succeed, there needs to be a sense of urgency that matches an intensity that cannot be described for you to really, really make this into your full living. Whether that's through me, where it's a forced urgency, or just I cannot take another day walking into this office type of urgency, and my soul is dying every single day if I don't do something. And it's that leap of faith. Now, please do not quit your jobs tomorrow. There's ways to do it. We can scale up to it and build a side.
I 100% agree with that. Like if people want to go do that, then more power to them. But I don't know. Like, to me, that I don't think many people, Steven, correct me if I'm wrong on this, because I'm curious your thoughts, but like hearing you talk about all the things you've been through, like I think most people aren't really cut out to be entrepreneurs. Like they just don't have it in them to do what it takes and do the things and be on 24/7 and be the one that all the crappy stuff falls on to take care of stuff. And it's not some freedom. I think this is like the lie in the entrepreneur world. Like, being an entrepreneur is not freedom. At least I don't see it as that. Tell me if I'm wrong.
No, it's definitely everything. Heavy lies the crown, as they say, right? Everything falls on your shoulders as a business owner. If there's a client problem that has to be escalated, you're taking that phone call. There's an issue on payroll, you're the one coming out of your pocket to make sure payroll happens. In my case, I own the property management business. There's a leak in someone's house, 2:00 in the morning, and it happens to be Christmas Eve. I'm getting out of bed and I'm taking care of it because my employees don't work 24/7.
Right.
And I would say that's the mentality you have to have. But there is a way to engineer yourself out of that once you kind of go through the hellfire.
100%. But everybody I know that's built successful businesses at one point, I mean, you go back and look at the pictures of the Jeff Bezos and, Elon sleeping 18 hours in his
in the warehouse
manufacturing facility or whatever, right? Like working 18 hours and sleeping in his manufacturing facility and getting up and doing it again 7 days a week, for months on end, right? Like, most people just aren't willing to do that.
No, and you familiar with who Robert Greene is? He's the author of 48 Laws of Power.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Him and 50 Cent.
Yeah, exactly. 50 Law of Power. Yeah.
The 50th law.
Yeah, exactly. So he writes in his book that you need people who are, and this is cruel to say, but you need people who are cogs in the system, who are a little bit elevated from the standard factory worker, and that's probably 95% of society, unfortunately. I wish people would have the gumption to go for it, but not everyone's cut out to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and I don't think,
man, it's all good. Like, you don't have to be, and I'm not as strict as what Robert Greene just said. I don't think they're cogs in the wheel. But
sure,
someone can really, you can be totally happy working if you're fulfilled at your job, you make a decent living, and you're off on the weekends, and you take your 2 vacations a year, and you're fine. God bless you, man. I mean, absolutely, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not wired that way. I'm nuts, and so are you probably. We're built different.
Yeah, a little bit nuts, maybe just a little bit. No, I 100% agree, man. Like, I think everybody. I've been thinking a lot about this because I think everybody really knows, kind of deep down in their heart, if they're meant to do more or if they're doing what they should be doing. And, if you sit and get quiet for a while, just go in your bedroom, sit on your bed. And Jordan Peterson talks a little bit about this. Just sit on your bed and think about anything you need to be doing or could be doing or should be doing and would do to improve your life or your family's life. And you'll probably at least come up with one thing that you could do, and then just go do that. And it doesn't have to be, start a business or
It doesn't have to
whatever,
be climbing
right?
Mount Everest.
Yeah, maybe it's volunteering at your church or whatever, right?
Cleaning your room, as he espouses.
Yeah,
right?
we're all from a Christian perspective, we're the body of Christ, right? There's the pinky and there's the eye and there's all the different body members, but they all make up one body. But they all have different purposes, and some are more glorious than others, right?
Absolutely.
And some are so glorious they need to be hidden all the time, right? So you just there's all different walks of life, and one's not better than another.
I think that people, to your point, deep down know what their purpose is. It might be buried in there, but if there's a calling, like I kind of want to start my own food truck business. I really want to hike, go on a Catholic pilgrimage and do Camino de Santiago. I want to do climb this. I want to do that. I want to do whitewater, whatever it is. I want to ride wild horses. I want to be a poet.
Right.
Do not ignore that calling. That's and not saying again, you don't quit your job and put your family in jeopardy.
Right.
But to put that aside, and then you age, and as we know, no one on their deathbed's like, I wish I just worked more and harder and took less vacations or spent less time with my family.
100%, man. And speaking of deathbed conversations, right? I've never heard anybody on their deathbed say, I wish I had less kids. Right? Having kids,
you, man?
Having kids for me has been like such a perspective change, just of like what's really important in the world and in my life, right? Like, I love doing all sorts of things, but like family is like, it really helps you see what's important once you start having kids, I think.
Can I flip the microphone over to you? I'm curious to ask a question. How do you balance work, family, and faith? And how do you have it where you're not putting in the 90 hours and then your kids grow up and they have no memory of dad being home?
Well, I had a struggle, Steve. I've been struggling with this because there's only so many hours in a day. And so, at first I tried to do things at night. I would try to, record my podcast and work on other ventures at night. And, my daughter was young, and I'd spend some time with her for an hour or two, and I'd just stay up late. Right. And then, but I found I wasn't productive in the evening after a long day of, full day work and morning and all that. So, what I tried to do was get up early, but I didn't give up staying up at night, and I'd end up having a couple beers and, maybe more than a couple sometimes. And then it was, then I couldn't get up early and do what I needed to do in the morning. So I had a, call it a come to Jesus moment, call it whatever moment you want. One of those get real with yourself moments. And this is kind of why I say, I think everybody knows what they need to do. I had to get real with myself and just say, okay, if I really want to do some of the stuff I think I want to do, I'm going to have to go to bed early and get up really early. And, I basically created a 3-hour super productive block of time for myself in the mornings before everybody else's day starts.
And that's your hyper productive mode of being, whatever it happens to be, like prayer.
Meditation. Yeah. So I get up, I write my goals, which is to me a form of prayer. And then I read, I work on business stuff, personal podcast, whatever. And, I do some workout, little move the body a little bit. And again, this is all recent stuff for me. I've been doing this since about, off and on for the last couple of years, but really this routine for the last, 90, 120 days, something like that. But yeah, I get up at 3 a.m. every day, And
3 a.m. You're a better man than me.
well, I mean, it doesn't make me better. It's just a choice, right? I just traded. I go to bed at 9, right?
Yeah.
So like, I'm sure you're not going to bed at 9 p.m. every night.
I'm going to bed at 8:30, 9 p.m. I just sleep 2 hours more than you. I get up at 5, but
Well, yeah. So like, that's another thing. Maybe some people need some more sleep. I'm not saying I get tired too by the end of the day, and I'll have to take a nap on the weekend or something, and maybe I need 6.5 hours instead of just 6 hours of sleep. But you got to just decide. I had to trade unproductive time for productive time, and to me, that's the big thing that people miss when they're trying to get a new habit or change their life is they don't stop doing the stuff. They add on, and then they're like, oh, I can't do all this. It's like, well, yeah, you need to you're going to add this in, so you need to drop stuff in other places. And like to me, that's been super
if you say
effective.
yes to something, it's saying no to something else, always.
Exactly.
So it could be positive or negative on both ends there, but you have to be fully aware of that.
Yeah. When do you have a routine, or did you get into a routine, or when starting your business as a business owner, what was like going from new business owner to more mature business owner like you are now?
Getting back to the urgency, right, of 2020 and COVID, I took it upon myself to be like, okay, how can I squeeze the greatest amount of juice out of my mind and my body to be as productive as I can possibly imagine? And that involved getting up at 5 a.m., doing a daily journal. And it wasn't necessarily, what worked for me was not necessarily daily goals, but just a recording of thoughts of like, this is what's on my mind today. I feel like my ego is being put to the test. I need to tame it. I need to put in whatever it happened to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then I typically would do a quick breathing exercise of like 10 minutes just to kind of reset, and then stretch, nothing too crazy. And then deep reading, where I'm reading something that is usually a nonfiction book. It could be about health optimization, it could be about business. Nothing no novels or science fiction or just fiction. That's usually comes later. That's more of a pleasure side of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then setting it out right where like the morning is the peace time. It's before the kids wake up. Now I did that, and then my son, I have a 3.5-year-old, and I have a 10-month-old son. Once he was born, he was getting up before me at 4 a.m.
Right.
So right. It's I'm starting to slowly get back into it where he gets into a regular sleep pattern, but
right.
it's tough. And sometimes you fall off the wagon, but as long as you keep it, or you get back on it.
That's right.
And one thing I've done for a decade is going to the gym 4 or 5 days a week. There's no other option to do it. And it's a mixture of cardio and just like, some light weightlifting. It's maintenance as we both get in our 30s, right? I don't really care about bench pressing 3 plates anymore. But that's my 45 minutes to an hour of just fully focused on a physical activity.
Sure.
And that's what's helped me be very productive. And then, I really maintain family time. I take my kids to my daughter's school every single morning. I try to be home every time at, around 6 o'clock at night at the latest. And then this has been so hard for me, but being fully present when I walk in the door, where I can leave whatever work is behind me, has been the biggest challenge for me, because my brain is just running at like a highlight reel constantly, where I'm sitting in the room with my daughter, I'm thinking about an email I have to get through. So my physical being is there, but my mind is so gone. And it's literally, I've had to take my phone and like put it in the mailbox and be like, nope, I got to go get that in an hour. Or sit down to dinner, no phones allowed. Like there's a lot of things I have to do to kind of tame the beast, so to speak, to turn it off.
I think I need to take some notes from you on that one, because I think that's an area I need to get better, and my wife would agree, and so would my daughter, I imagine. But I feel like for me, you said like you can't turn your mind off. That's very relatable to me. I think a lot of people that kind of like the stuff that we like are like that. And I used to drink fairly regularly, and I think that's why. I think it like allowed me to just sit and chill and not be like I lost my ability to watch TV. When I stopped drinking alcohol, I can't watch it. I can't concentrate for 2 minutes and watch a show. Like, it's unbelievable. I have to be.
Are you going to your phone and like scrolling, or like what is the replacement?
I'm just like, this is a waste of time. I don't care about this. Like, I want to go do something productive.
Yeah.
It's like I have no reason to sit here. I feel like crap doing it. I don't know. It's so bizarre. Like, my mind is just all the time.
I don't want, or I really don't watch unless I'm sitting down with my wife to watch like an hour of like a TV series, which is maybe once a week. I don't really watch TV.
Yeah. I
You know,
used to a lot, like a ton. And
yeah, for sure, man.
yeah, I
I'll
I
tell
can't
you,
anymore.
I'll share with you a story that I read about good old Warren Buffett,
There you
the
go.
Oracle of Omaha, right? And people think of him as this, this sage, wise character of investing. And I was reading his biography, and in the 1970s, he was anything but the sage. He was a very aggressive, like really focused on the business to the detriment of his family.
Mm.
And one story really stood out to me. He was running late for a board meeting, and he was like going to be like speaking like the typical like quarterly annual meetings that Berkshire Hathaway is famous for, right? As he's walking into the house, his daughter is about 4 years old. She's at the top of the steps. She trips, falls down, breaks her arm in front of him. He steps over her to get to the meeting on time and goes, "Oh, honey, something happened with Joyce," and goes into the board meeting. And some will say, "Wow, that's dedication to his craft." I'm sure his daughter's fine, and the mom took care of him. But I'm like, if I ever end up like that, I've lost my purpose in life, because
Yeah.
your kids are what I mean. For me as a family man, that's what drives me more than anything else, and I have to constantly
Right.
remind myself of that. And you ever see the show Breaking Bad?
Yeah.
You remember the scene where Walter White's speaking to his ex-wife, and he's like, "I did it," and she's like, "I know you did it for the family. I know." He's like, "No, I did it for me."
Right.
That scares the hell out of me because I know that's in me. So for
Yeah.
us, and there's a balance. I'm actually going to see Jordan Peterson. I hope they ask him this question.
Dude, I'm seeing him on the, what is it, 17th? He's in
Awesome,
Houston.
man. He'll
Yeah.
be in Connecticut in June. So
There you go.
same
I'm seeing
seminar.
him. I'm seeing him this month. I'm
Yeah,
pumped.
good stuff, man. We do think alike. But I'm like, am I? And I love your opinion. Am I wrong to be an ambitious person, but I know I'm sacrificing something with my kids as well? Like, is there a balance? Is it possible to balance it, or there's going to be a sacrifice either which way you split it?
So the one thing I think is really cool about entrepreneurship is you can bring your kids with you.
That's true.
And so my goal, and like I want to take my kids everywhere, and leadership is example, right? And I think of all the things that my kids are going to learn because of all the cool stuff that I do, because I do some really cool stuff, and I'm not ashamed of it. And
Hell yeah.
I want to give my daughter experiences. I'm very thankful for the experiences that I had, and I had some great ones. And, I remember my parents, they wanted me to be exposed to like fancy dinners, and that's really equipped me in the professional world to know how to handle
Well, etiquette.
business
Yeah.
dinners and etiquette. And my mom read me Emily Post etiquette books around the table when I was a kid and stuff like that. So, this isn't a bash on my family at all. I had some great experiences, but I want my daughter to have great experiences and different experiences even than I had, right? So like I would go once a year to the lake, and my family had a boat, and I'd try to water ski, and I couldn't even get up on skis till I was like in high school or something crazy, because I only went once a year, and I was never on the water, but I loved it. And I would have loved to ski, but I never could. And now we decided, hey, let's get a boat and take our daughter out so she can grow up on the water and enjoy that stuff and have those experiences. And there's ways to do that where you do it as a business, and you can take advantage of that. So I just think there's so many opportunities to teach, to learn, to educate your children as you go about doing an entrepreneurial style life.
Right.
And so that's what I would say to that is, like, I don't think you're wrong, but I also don't think it's wrong to do cool stuff. Just, you can do cool stuff and not be a total jerk.
Yeah, like walking past your broken arm
Yeah.
at your door.
Like unbelievable, right?
Yeah, and it's, for me, like I usually our winters here are really tough in the New England region. So every January or February, I go away for a month and I work remotely, and we go somewhere in Latin America where it's nice and toasty. I've been in
Nice.
Colombia, Argentina. I bring the whole family with me.
That's
And
awesome.
it's a cultural experience. It's something they get to learn about different languages, try different cuisine, and it's even like really learning experiences. Like I grew up in New York City, so homelessness was always like a thing. Kind of seeing crazy people speaking to themselves, but not really in Connecticut. We're in a sleepy suburb over here. We went to Medellin, Colombia, and it was the first time my daughter ever noticed a homeless guy. She was like, Daddy, why is he on the floor? And it creates like, how do I answer this? Like, is it because he has mental health issues? Is it like he doesn't want to work? And it gets like, oh, this is a fun, challenging thing as a parent. Like, how do I guide my kids through this journey of why they're? She's like, oh, and she's very, she's very curious. Oh, we should help them. I said, you're right, we should, but not everybody sometimes wants help, and like kind of going through that journey and dialogue, and that's like the experiences you have of just traveling. Like I wouldn't necessarily have that in the suburbs of Connecticut. It's just not
100%. No, man, you're right on. And back to your question of like, how do you balance it? I think it's just being purposeful with your time. So for me, I have from 5 p.m. to 8:30, 9 o'clock every night is dedicated family time. And does stuff cut into that sometimes? Yeah. But, for a good hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, potentially 4 hours, I've got time with my daughter. Now I'm taking her to gymnastics and soccer and stuff like that. And, baby number 2's on the way. So I'm going to have all over again those all-nighters and no sleep. And I'm sure that'll make doing my routine really challenging. And,
it's coming, believe me.
Yeah. It's just, but that, I mean, to me, that's just until you filled your calendar and you're able to say, okay, this is what I want to do. Now I'm going to add this here and I got to shift this around. Like most people don't even have a calendar, right? So how do they even know where they're spending time?
You let the world dictate to you how your day's going to be rather than the other way around.
You nailed it. Yeah. That's very true. Very true. Well, Steve, this has been fun, man. I know you got to get back to your
wife
and kids, man.
Kids,
but before you go, I got to ask you the final question. We're allowed to have you back too, because I think we could go round and round a couple times.
Much appreciated. I got to get you on my show too soon, man.
Yeah, I'd love that. That'd be great. But the reason I started the podcast, one of the reasons was the perspective I got from Gary Vaynerchuk at the time, which was, how cool would it be if you had like conversations, hours and hours of recorded conversations of your great grandpa having conversations with people.
Yeah, man.
And like, I may only have like a picture of him, right?
No personality. Don't know what the guy's like. Don't know what he stood for. Just stories, maybe.
Yeah. With that perspective in mind, and not knowing who might see this down the road, your grandchildren, great grandchildren, etc., what would you want to leave those future generations with today?
Be bold. Take the risk. Take the leap of faith. Don't be afraid of the what ifs. Life is going to work out and find a way. Always remember that you're smart and capable of greatness. When you leave this earth, make sure there's no potential left within you. Squeeze that lemon dry, and adventurous things will start to occur, and you'll have a life that is wildly unexpected. And also appreciate yourself. The 5 years ago, the person that you were then would have loved to be the person you are now. So remember that and appreciate what you have in life. That's my deep philosophical question.
Yes, good perspective. Good perspective. Steve Calascione, welcome to GLE, man. Thank you for coming on.
That's my
great having you, y'all. If you're listening, go rewind this one. Steve had some great wisdom to share with you. Check out successwithclass.com. Go grab his book, Service Business Mastery, and share the show as you go. Lead
Much appreciated.
Everything. Thanks, Steve.
Later, man.